Welcome to Occult Archives, where we uncover the mysteries, myths, and legends behind history's most feared books.
From mystical grimoires to ancient religious texts.
These books carry secrets too dangerous to be read.
Are you ready to turn the pages of the unknown?
This is Episode 1, The Forbidden Page is Open. Let's dive in.
For this deep dive, you've shared a collection of fascinating and frankly rather intense texts with us.
We have excerpts ranging from purported books of spells and evocations to interpretations of esoteric systems, astrological guides, religious texts.
And even discussions on witchcraft.
It's quite the stack.
Indeed. We're looking at texts that have historically been shrouded in mystery, sometimes fear and often controversy.
Our mission is to navigate through this material, extract the key ideas, and understand what made these books so forbidden. You wanted to understand the core knowledge and insights contained within these sources.
Without getting lost in overly academic language or feeling overwhelmed.
So let's unpack some of the most intriguing aspects we found. Let's start by delving into what these texts reveal about the nature of spells and invocations.
Okay.
We have some rather evocative material here from what's referred to as the Al-Azif Necronomicon, which falls into the category of a grimoire, essentially a textbook of magic, often detailing spells and how to summon spirits.
This one's particularly interesting because it draws heavily on Sumerian and Akkadian mythology and deities.
Really. This appeal to Sumerian and Akkadian origins is a fascinating aspect of many occult traditions. It suggests a belief that ancient civilizations possessed a deeper, perhaps even more potent understanding of these forces, lending a sense of timeless power and legitimacy to the spells.
Exactly. They're tapping into a lineage that supposedly goes back thousands of years.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The text mentions something called the Moklu text. Apparently, this is where they draw some of these incantations from, and it heavily involves burning something, usually a doll representing a witch or sorcerer. It even suggests this could be an archetype for the great burning times of the Inquisition. That's a rather chilling thought.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture of historical persecutions, the idea of ritualistically disposing of an effigy of a perceived enemy certainly resonates with broader themes of scapegoating and the demonization of marginalized groups. The burn, witch burn mentality, as the text points out, has deep roots.
Yeah, it's a disturbing reminder of how fear and ignorance can lead to violence and oppression. So moving on to some specifics, the Necronomicon excerpt details invocations like one for summoning Marduk. It's quite precise, mentioning engraving his seal on tin or brass when Jupiter is strong in the heavens. He's described as a mighty warrior with a long beard and a flaming disc carrying a bow and arrows keeping watch. It sounds rather dramatic.
The emphasis on specific astrological timings and the detailed description of the entity are characteristic of many grimoires. These texts often provide elaborate instructions to create a sense of power and ensure the efficacy of the ritual. The imagery of Marduk as a powerful, watchful warrior reflects his historical significance in Mesopotamian mythology.
There's also a description of altar preparation. It needs to face north with statues of deities, an offering bowl, and a brazier. Apparently, the appropriate gate should be inscribed on the earth. The lighting is specific too. 4 lamps on the ground at the 4 cardinal directions. The oil should be pure or sweet-smelling, and the brazier perfumes appropriate to the star one desires entrance to. It's quite a production.
This level of detail underscores the ritualistic mindset. Every element, the direction, the symbols, the offerings, the light, is intended to create a specific energetic and symbolic environment conducive to the desired outcome, which in this case is contact with astral powers. So with this elaborate altar facing north, adorned with specific statues and prepared with particular oils and perfumes to align with the desired star, what kind of entities were these Necronomicon invocations intended to contact?
The text mentions both benevolent and malevolent entities, some associated with specific planets and constellations. There's a call to Marduk and Nenebi, the dark wanderer of the Forgotten Lands, and gatekeepers of the astral gods. The language is very evocative. Gate of the double-horned elder god, open gate of the last city of the skies open. It's designed to sound ancient and powerful.
The use of repeated names and titles along with the imperative open is a common technique in incantations. It's meant to build intensity and focus the will of the practitioner, almost like a rhythmic hammering at the metaphorical gate to the spiritual realm.
There's also a rather intense-sounding phrase, Yutuk oksul ta'ardata kutuluta atalakla asagtof pakala anu iya en lai en tadizabo. The text says this is followed by invocations for summoning various powers and spirits. It definitely sounds like something you wouldn't want to just chant casually.
Indeed, these kinds of barbarous names and powerful pronouncements are intended to resonate with the entities being called, acting as a key or a command within that specific occult system. The sheer unfamiliarity and forcefulness of the sounds likely contribute to the intended effect.
And the text even provides warnings about the potential dangers of these invocations.
Right, like disrupting the natural order or attracting unwanted attention from powerful entities.
Interestingly, there's also a preliminary invocation for speaking with the dead in ABSU. It's connected to Ereshkigal and in Anna's descent into the underworld, opening the gate of Gunzir. The text even warns not to be alarmed at the sights and sounds, the wails of chained shades, and the shrieking of the mad god on the throne of darkness that paints a vivid and terrifying picture.
This highlights the necromantic aspect found in some of these texts. The underworld, or ADSU in this context, is often seen as a source of hidden knowledge, but accessing it is portrayed as dangerous and potentially disturbing, involving confronting primal and chaotic forces.
Finally, we have mentions of specific spirits, like the 45th name Isis Kur knows the lifespan of everything and measures all things with the word Nenigagai and a specific seal, and the 46th name Jibble associated with fire, and the Forge sharp weapons metalworking and even raising lightning with the word Balagnatara and its own seal. These sound like very specialized entities.
Exactly. The attribution of specific powers and knowledge to these entities is a hallmark of these occult systems. It suggests a complex cosmology where different spirits govern different aspects of reality, and through the correct rituals and invocations, one might tap into those specific domains.
So from potentially dangerous invocations, let's shift gears quite dramatically and move on to the esoteric interpretations of the tarot, particularly through the lens of Aleister Crowley's The Book of Thoth. This seems like a whole other level of symbolic complexity.
It is Crowley's work built upon a significant history of esoteric tarot interpretation, with Eliphas Levi being a key figure. Levi, back in the mid-19th century, really emphasized the tarot as a pictorial form of the Kabbalistic tree of life. Think of the tree of life as a map of the cosmos and the human soul, with different spheres and connecting pathways. Levi saw the tarot trumps as corresponding to these fundamental elements of that system. This connection to the Kabbalah is fundamental to understanding many modern esoteric interpretations of the tarot.
Dogma and ritual, that was Levi's division of his treatise on magic, with 22 chapters in each part, corresponding to the 22 trumps. That shows how central he saw the tarot to his system.
Precisely. Levi saw the tarot not just as a divination tool, but as a comprehensive, symbolic system encapsulating the fundamental principles of the Kabbalah and Western esoteric tradition.
Now, Crowley messes with the numbering of the trumps, right? He puts the card numbered 0, the Fool at the beginning before one traditional dex, placed it between XX and XIs. That seems like a pretty significant change.
It is. From a more mathematically inclined perspective, placing 0 at the beginning makes logical sense. Esoterically, it emphasizes the Fool as the undifferentiated potentiality from which all other archetypes emerge.
And then there's the counterchange of eighth and I's strength and justice strength, with the lion obviously relating to Leo and justice, with the sword and balances to Libra. Apparently, Frater Perdurabo Crowley's magical name had quite the study on this.
Yes. Crowley, as Frater Perdurabo, felt that the traditional attributions were incorrect. He received what he believed to be a corrected attribution through his reception of the Book of the Law, where it was indicated that Tzadi was not the star, but the emperor. This led to the reordering of strength and justice to align with the correct zodiacal and Kabbalistic correspondences in his system.
Okay, so we're seeing how Crowley really put his own unique spin on the tarot, incorporating his own Kabbalistic interpretations and insights. The court cards also get a bit convoluted. We have king, queen, princess, but then also knight, queen, king, and sometimes even emperor and empress. It's a bit of a mixed bag of titles.
The knight, in Crowley's system, represents the father principle associated with fire and action. The queen is the mother associated with water and receptivity, the prince is the son associated with air and intellect, and the princess is the daughter associated with earth and manifestation. The overlap in titles reflects different ways of understanding these archetypal roles, with connections to both Hebrew and pagan systems, and even the legend of the fool winning the king's daughter, as Fraser's Golden Bough explores.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. It seems like every element of the tarot in Crowley's system is loaded with layers of symbolic meaning. And the 4 suits, wands, fire cups, water swords, air, and discs, earth, they correspond to the 4 planes of the Tree of Life, and even an analysis of Manjakita, Chai Neshma, Rok Nefesh, and the 4 worlds, Atziluth, Braya, Yetzirah, Asaya. That's a lot of interconnected symbolism.
Absolutely. This intricate web of correspondences is central to the esoteric understanding of the tarot. Each suit and card is seen as a microcosm, reflecting the macrocosm, connecting the elemental forces, the structure of the soul, and the levels of cosmic manifestation.
We have a list of specific tarot cards here with their elemental and astrological attributions. For instance, the Knight of Wands is the fiery part of fire and associated with Aries. The Knight of Cups is the fiery part of water. The Princess of Discs is the earthy part of Earth. It's like a periodic table of esoteric energies.
Precisely. These attributions allow for a very nuanced understanding of each card's energetic qualities and its place within the broader system. The astrological connections further refine these interpretations, adding another layer of symbolic meaning.
And some of the trumps get specific mentions. The juggler associated with Mercury represents will wisdom, and the logos, the Hierophant, linked to Taurus, symbolizes the uniting of microcosm and macrocosm, and represents the dawning of a new eon. The devil, with its spiral energy, and the tower associated with Mars and cosmic energy destruction also stand out. Even some of the minor arcana, like the Eight of Discs, populous stability, Nine of Wands, Yesod, crystallized energy, and in the Kabbalah, Yesod is the foundation linked to the subconscious and manifestation. And Eight of Swords, interference hod, which is splendor or intellect on the tree of life, lack of persistence, diverse weapons, are loaded with symbolic meaning.
Each of these cards represents a specific archetype, energy, or principle within the esoteric framework. The juggler, as Mercury, embodies communication and manifestation. The Hierophant signifies spiritual teaching and the transition between cosmic ages. The devil represents primal energies, while the tower symbolizes sudden change and upheaval. Even the seemingly mundane minor arcana cards carry significant weight in terms of their sephirotic and elemental attributions.
So, from the complex symbolism of the tarot, let's move into the realm of practical magic with Picatrix, Gayat al-Hakim. This medieval work sounds like a real treasure trove of astrological magic.
It is considered a foundational text in Western astrological magic. What's fascinating is its interdisciplinary nature, blending metaphysics, philosophy, theology, and what was considered science at the time, all with a strong astrological focus.
The excerpt mentions talismans made under specific astrological conditions for a whole range of purposes: isolating cities, defeating enemies, fulfilling wishes, causing misfortune, even freeing slaves or destroying ships. It's quite a list.
This illustrates the core principle of astrological magic, the belief that by carefully timing magical acts and talisman creation with specific planetary alignments and celestial influences, one can harness those energies to achieve desired outcomes in the material world.
So it's all about aligning your actions with the cosmic energies at play.
Exactly.
The significance of planetary hours and constellations is key, isn't it? Like making a talisman for misfortune in the hour of Saturn when the moon is in Sagittarius. That sounds rather ominous.
The specific planetary rulers of hours and the zodiacal sign the moon occupies are believed to imbue the talisman with particular qualities aligned with the intended effect. Saturn, traditionally associated with malefic influences, combined with the sign of Sagittarius under the lunar hour, would theoretically amplify the power of a misfortune-inducing talisman.
And then there's the concept of the master of the need and the ascendant in divining outcomes. Apparently, the ascendant shows the beginning, its master the middle, and the master's master the end. And it's important to have Sud, a good fortune present, and avoid Nuhu's misfortune.
This delves into the astrological principles of horary astrology, used to answer specific questions or determine the outcome of events. The ascendant and its planetary ruler are crucial in representing the querent and the initial stages of the matter, while further planetary connections reveal the unfolding and ultimate resolution. The concepts of Sud and Nuhus refer to benefic and malefic planetary influences, respectively.
We get some specific talisman examples, too. A Bizarre stone in the first phase of Cancer to repel scorpions, an ambergris-colored stone in the hour ascendant of the moon with specific letters drawn on it to repel fleas, and simply a picture of a snake to repel snakes. Some of these are surprisingly straightforward.
The combination of specific materials, astrological timings, and symbolic imagery was believed to create a potent magical effect. The straightforwardness of some talismans might reflect a more folk magic aspect integrated within the broader astrological framework of the Pietras.
And then we have talismans for more complex intentions, preventing rain or sea harm during the third duration of the moon, love and harmony, and the first duration of Venus, with Libra or Taurus, excitement and shame, and the second duration of Mars, and gaining favor against certain groups in the third duration of the sun. It's a magic for all occasions, it seems. Now, the duration refers to a third of a lunar mansion, a specific division within the moon's monthly cycle.
Indeed, these divisions further refine the astrological timing for these talismans. The planetary and zodiacal correspondences: Venus with Libra Taurus for love, Mars for excitement, the Sun for authority, align with traditional astrological associations.
Finally, there's a mention of talismans for malevolent Saturn in Cancer or Scorpio with Mars, and for bloodshed with the moon in aerial constellations. This darker side of magic is also present.
The Picatrix, while encompassing a wide range of magical practices, doesn't shy away from those intended for harmful purposes. The combination of malefic planets like Saturn and Mars, along with astrologically significant lunar positions, reflects the text's comprehensive approach to the art of talismanic magic.
It's a reminder that magic, like any tool, can be used for good or ill depending on the intentions of the practitioner.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's turn our attention to apocalyptic visions and angelic beings as presented in the complete Book of Enoch. This text offers a very different kind of forbidden knowledge focused on cosmology and divine judgment.
The Book of Enoch is a fascinating apocryphal text filled with vivid imagery and accounts of Enoch's heavenly journeys. It provides insights into ancient Jewish cosmology, angelology, and eschatology.
Enoch describes seeing winds, clouds, the paths of angels, and a fiery place with 7 mountains made of magnificent stones, each with specific colors and materials. The middle one even reaches to heaven, like God's throne made of alabaster with a sapphire summit. These are incredibly detailed and symbolic visions.
The detailed descriptions of these celestial realms and materials serve to convey the grandeur and otherworldliness of Enoch's visions. The colors and precious stones likely hold symbolic significance within the broader context of ancient Near Eastern cosmology and religious beliefs.
Apparently, Enoch received books of zeal and wrath and books of disquiet and expulsion, and was told that mercy would not be accorded to some. Then he's carried off in a whirlwind and shown the dwelling places of the holy and righteous, their intercessions for humanity, and the flow of righteousness and mercy amongst them. It's a stark contrast.
This juxtaposition of divine wrath and the intercession of the righteous is a recurring theme in apocalyptic literature. Enoch's ascent allows him to witness both the judgment and the potential for redemption, highlighting the consequences of human actions and the mercy available to the faithful.
He also sees 4 presences: Michael, merciful and long-suffering; Raphael, over diseases and wounds; Gabriel, over powers; and Phanuel, over repentance unto hope. These seem to be archangels with specific domains.
These 4 archangels are significant figures in Jewish and later Christian angelology. Their specific roles, as described in Enoch, reflect the hierarchical structure of divine intermediaries with responsibilities for different aspects of creation and human experience.
The text emphasizes God's righteousness and judgment and the perishing of the unrepentant, stating that there will be no future mercy for them. It also talks about the earth and Sheol giving back what they received, and hell returning what it owes at the rise of the elect one. This paints a picture of a final reckoning.
This is a clear depiction of eschatological judgment, where the dead are resurrected and held accountable for their actions. The emphasis on justice and the finality of the judgment are characteristic of apocalyptic worldviews.
Enoch has visions of monsters being parted and cast into the sea and wilderness, which is interpreted as seeking to know what is hidden. He also sees the sun's movement through portals affecting the length of day and night, and bizarre visions of large, black oxen-changing stars descending and becoming bulls, and their unnatural coupling producing elephants, camels, and asses. This is getting quite surreal.
The symbolic language here is typical of apocalyptic visions. The monsters likely represent chaotic forces or hidden knowledge, while the celestial and animal imagery often serves as allegories for historical events, societal changes, or spiritual realities, though their precise interpretations can be complex and debated.
There are also symbolic representations of conflict with sheepdogs, foxes, wild boars, rams and lambs, and warnings against lacking doctrine and wisdom, with the fate of sinners being a furnace of fire. Woes are declared upon those who work unrighteousness and oppression, leading to a great judgment, with fathers, sons, and brothers falling in death and rivers of blood. It's a very grim outlook.
The animal allegories are common in apocalyptic literature, representing different groups of people or spiritual forces in conflict. The warnings against sin and the vivid descriptions of punishment serve to underscore the importance of righteousness and obedience within the Enochian worldview.
So the Book of Enoch presents a very vivid and often unsettling vision of the end times, with themes of judgment, redemption, and the cosmic struggle between good and evil. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. Moving on, the complete Book of Enoch also contains accounts of Solomon's interactions with demons, which is quite a departure from the apocalyptic visions.
Yes, these excerpts shift focus to the practical application of esoteric knowledge, specifically Solomon's legendary wisdom and power over spirits.
We hear about Solomon taking 200 shekels from a special stone for the incense table and questioning a demon frustrated by the angel Brias. It seems even demons have their superiors in this hierarchy.
This highlights the structured nature of the spiritual realm. as envisioned in these texts, with hierarchies of angels and demons, each with their own spheres of influence and limitations.
Another demon appears as a roaring lion, claiming to be incapable of being perceived, afflicting the sick, casting out other demons, and having legions under its control. Its name is Lion-Bearer Wrath and Kind. However, this demon is reluctant to name the angel that frustrates it, fearing it would bind its legions as well. This suggests a delicate balance of power.
The demon's description of its powers and limitations, along with his fear of revealing the angel's name, offers a glimpse into the perceived dynamics of the spirit world. The idea that knowing a name grants power or allows for binding is a common motif in magical traditions.
You also included the Gospel of Judas. For those unfamiliar, this is a Gnostic text that offers a very different perspective on the role of Judas in the events surrounding Jesus. We won't delve deeply into it here, as our excerpt is just the link, but it's a significant text in understanding alternative early Christian views.
The Gospel of Judas is a fascinating text that challenges traditional Christian interpretations. It suggests that Judas may have acted with Jesus' knowledge and consent, even playing a crucial role in his mission. It's definitely worth exploring for those interested in alternative perspectives on early Christianity.
Now, let's delve into some rather uncomfortable territory with excerpts from The Talmud Unmasked, the Secret Rabbinical Teachings Concerning Christians. This text presents some very controversial Jewish perspectives on non-Jews and idolatry. It's important to approach this material with extreme caution and critical awareness, as it contains highly negative and disparaging views of Christianity and Christians. These views do not represent mainstream Jewish beliefs, and this text has historically been used to fuel anti-Semitism.
Right. It's crucial to understand the context and potential biases of these sources. We're not endorsing these viewpoints, but simply examining them as part of our exploration of forbidden knowledge.
The text mentions a prohibition against selling anything connected to idolatrous worship to Christians. Incense candles, chalices, even the binding of books is restricted with exceptions made only to avoid enmity. There's also a ban on selling water known to be used for baptism. These seem like measures to avoid any association with Christian religious practices.
These regulations reflect a historical concern within certain interpretations of Jewish law about avoiding any participation in or support of what is considered idolatrous practices.
Yeah.
The exceptions made to prevent enmity highlight a pragmatic consideration for maintaining peaceful relations within the broader community.
The language used to describe Christian figures and practices is shockingly contemptuous. Jesus is called Jeshu, meaning, may his name and memory be blotted out. Mary is Charia, dung. Christian saints are Kedishim, Kimegos. Feminine men and women saints, Kiddushkath, whores, Sundays the day of calamity, Christmas needle, extermination, and Easter Ketzak, cutting down or gallows. A church is a Beth Hadifla, a house of vanity or evil, and the Gospels are Evangelion, books of iniquity. Christian sacrifices are called dung offerings. It's incredibly offensive language.
This vitriolic language is deeply troubling and reflects extreme hostility towards Christianity. Such derogatory terms were unfortunately used in certain polemical contexts throughout history, contributing to a climate of religious intolerance and animosity. The interpretations provided within the Talmud Unmasked regarding Gentiles honoring their God by excrementing before idols are particularly egregious and unfounded.
The text also presents what it calls secret protocols, alleging a Jewish conspiracy to control various aspects of society. These themes include controlling public administrators relying on specialists, exploiting the Goyim's lack of historical observation, manipulating through science theory, and plans for monopolies and taking land from aristocracy. This sounds like classic anti-Semitic tropes.
This section of the Talmud Unmasked unfortunately promotes dangerous and unfounded conspiracy theories that have been central to anti-Semitism for centuries. The idea of secret protocols aimed at global domination is a fabrication designed to demonize Jewish people and incite hatred.
The alleged protocols also outline strategies for creating discord between nations, using cunning in negotiations while maintaining a mask of honesty and intentions to eliminate or radically alter freedoms of the press, association, conscience, and voting rights after a new constitution supposedly to establish overwhelming power and crush dissent. It's a blueprint for totalitarian control attributed to a specific group.
These are classic themes found in anti-Semitic forgeries, like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which falsely claim to reveal a Jewish plan for world domination. Such ideas are baseless and have had devastating real-world consequences, fueling discrimination and violence against Jewish communities.
The text even asserts the Goyim's inferior intellect and the belief that nature destined them for guidance and rule, envisioning future laws characterized by brevity, plainness, stability, and absolute submission to orders. This reinforces the idea of a superior group destined to rule over inferiors.
These claims of intellectual and inherent superiority are a dangerous and dehumanizing tactic used to justify discrimination and oppression. They are not based on any factual or ethical grounds and serve only to reinforce harmful prejudices.
It's a stark reminder of how easily prejudice and hatred can masquerade as religious or philosophical doctrine. We must always be critical of such claims and seek to understand their historical and social context. Let's move on to some lighter material with excerpts from the Gospels of Thomas, specifically stories from the Infancy Gospel and Acts of the Apostles sections of this collection. These offer glimpses into the life and teachings of Jesus and his followers from a different perspective.
The Infancy Gospels are a fascinating collection of apocryphal texts that fill in the gaps in the canonical Gospels, providing often imaginative and sometimes controversial accounts of Jesus' childhood and early years. These stories often reflect popular piety and attempts to understand the divine nature of Jesus through miraculous tales.
We have accounts of healing miracles attributed to Jesus and Mary, like a leper cured by Jesus' bathwater and a bride cured by Mary using the same method. These sound like more folkloric tales.
The Infancy Gospels, including the Gospel of Thomas, are apocryphal texts that often elaborate on the childhood of Jesus and other biblical figures, sometimes with miraculous or legendary elements that differ from the canonical Gospels. These stories often reflect popular piety and attempts to fill in the gaps in the biblical narrative.
There's also a prayer acknowledging God's power and humanity's feebleness during Jesus' baptism. And then we hear about the missionary journeys of various apostles: Philip to Parthia, Andrew to Achaia, and Thrace Thomas to India, and Matthew to savage troglodytes. These accounts expand on the spread of early Christianity.
These narratives, while not part of the canonical Acts of the Apostles, reflect early traditions and legends about the missionary activities of Jesus' followers, highlighting the geographical reach and the challenges faced by the early church in spreading its message to diverse populations.
Philip is said to have healed a chief through the cross and Jesus' name. There are discussions about prophets and the nature of Jesus, Mary's son, but also the power and wisdom of God. Churches are established, like Stachys becoming bishop in Asia, and the Savior appears to the apostles. Andrew and Bartholomew also have their travels and preaching, and Matthew plants a staff that becomes a tree, baptizes a queen, and averts burning through a vision. These are all very active and miraculous accounts.
These stories emphasize the miraculous power attributed to the apostles and the divine nature of Jesus, reinforcing the foundational beliefs of Christianity and the establishment of early Christian communities through preaching, healing, and divine intervention.
Now let's take a brief look at witchcraft in the Atharva Veda tradition, based on the Asurical Pawach C00mago.pdf excerpt. This offers a glimpse into non-Western magical practices.
The Atharva Veda is one of the four Vedas, ancient Hindu scriptures, and it contains hymns and spells dealing with various aspects of life, including healing, protection, and also what could be considered witchcraft.
The text mentions the Parajista, a style resembling sutras, terse, and technical. It refers to Asuri, witchcraft, and materials like meal and black mustard seeds. There are also rituals involving burning mantras and the adornment of a goddess in reddish apparel, gunya, and vigila. It sounds like a very different magical system than what we've seen so far.
This points to the universality of magical practices across cultures, albeit with different frameworks, deities, and materials. The Atharva Veda's approach, focusing on specific ingredients or rituals and invocations to deities, reflects the unique cultural and religious context of ancient India.
So while the specific practices may differ, the underlying impulse to connect with and influence unseen forces seems to be a universal human trait.
It seems so.
Finally, we come to theological and legal perspectives on witchcraft with excerpts from B3136245X.pdf, which seems related to the infamous Malleus Maleficarum. This is where the fear and persecution of witches really take center stage.
The Malleus Maleficarum was a highly influential text in the late medieval and early modern periods, serving as a handbook for inquisitors dealing with witchcraft. It represents a culmination of theological and legal arguments that demonized witchcraft as a dangerous heresy and a threat to Christian society.
The text links witchcraft to political plots and anarchy, mentioning Gregory Thurstat's condemnation and Gregory the X's bull against Luciferians. It also introduces inquisitors like James Springer and Heinrich Kramer, highlighting their zealous prosecution of witchcraft. The Malleus views witchcraft as a huge conspiracy against civilization.
The historical context is crucial here. The linking of witchcraft to political and social unrest reflects the anxieties of the time. The papal pronouncements and the rise of inquisitors like Sprenger and Kramer solidify the institutional persecution of those accused of witchcraft. The Malleus provided a theological and legal justification for these actions, portraying witchcraft as a direct attack on the established order.
There are arguments for the reality of witches and mental influence, fashioning images, spells mysterious characters, and the role of spiritual mediums. It attempts to provide a rational basis, however flawed, for believing in witchcraft.
The Malleus draws on Aristotelian philosophy and demonology to explain how witchcraft might be possible. It posits that while celestial bodies and human thoughts can have influence, the direct power to perform magical acts ultimately comes from the devil and his demonic agents working through witches.
It's interesting how they try to blend these seemingly rational explanations with a very superstitious worldview.
Right. It's a blend of folklore, theology, and what they considered scientific reasoning at the time.
Debates on devils and procreation, specifically incubi and succubi, are also included, along with the notorious assertion that women are more prone to witchcraft due to carnal lust. The devil's influence on the mind through phantasms is discussed, and penitence is offered as a remedy. The power of devils to cause harm with God's permission and the role of good angels in restraining evil are also explored. It's a very detailed and disturbing theological framework.
The Malleus delves into the sexualized aspects of demonology, with the infamous concept of incubi and succubi. The claim that women are inherently more susceptible to witchcraft due to their supposed insatiable lust is a particularly harmful and unfounded assertion that fueled the persecution of women as witches. The text attempts to reconcile the existence of evil with divine sovereignty by arguing that God permits demonic activity for his own purposes, while good angels offer a degree of protection.
The process of inquisition is described, including accusations, imprisonment, and torture. The importance of witnesses and their credibility is emphasized, along with abjuration of heresy, the distinction between heretics and apostates, and the different jurisdictions over witches. Even methods of detecting witchcraft, like using molten lead, are mentioned, along with excommunication and degradation of heretics and the handling of appeals. It's a grim picture of legal and religious persecution.
The Malleus provides a chillingly detailed account of the inquisitorial process, outlining the steps involved in identifying, accusing, interrogating, and punishing individuals accused of witchcraft. The acceptance of torture as a means of extracting confessions, along with the unequal treatment and lack of due process for the accused, highlights the injustice and cruelty of these persecutions.
And it's important to remember that these persecutions had very real and often deadly consequences for countless individuals accused of witchcraft.
Absolutely. It's a dark chapter in human history and a reminder of the dangers of religious fanaticism and the abuse of power.
Finally, we have excerpts on the world of jinn and devils from an Islamic perspective. This offers yet another cultural lens on unseen beings.
Islamic tradition recognizes the existence of jinn beings created from smokeless fire who can be good or evil. Devils, or shayateen, are often seen as those jinn who follow Satan in his rebellion against God.
The text recounts a jinn attempting to interrupt the Prophet Muhammad's prayer, Allah's power over it, and the Prophet remembering Solomon's supplication for unique sovereignty. This highlights the power of divine protection against malevolent spirits.
This story emphasizes the vulnerability of even prophets to the influence of evil forces and the importance of seeking refuge in God. Solomon's prayer for a kingdom that none after him would have underscores the uniqueness of his divinely granted power.
There's a warning against Satan's seduction and enmity, and his tactics are described: blocking good deeds, ruining worship by whispering during prayer, kinza, and bewitching the mind to make harmful things appealing and beneficial things repulsive. This paints a picture of a constant spiritual struggle.
Islamic teachings emphasize the constant struggle between good and evil, with Satan and his followers actively seeking to mislead humanity. The description of Satan's tactics highlights the importance of vigilance and seeking God's protection against his whispers and deceptions.
The text mentions seeking refuge in Allah from evil through a specific supplication taught by Gabriel, and dealing with jinn possession through exhortation, proof, consultation, and if necessary abuse, striking or cursing, referencing the prophet's example with a fiery devil. This suggests a proactive approach to dealing with malevolent spiritual entities.
The Islamic tradition provides guidance on how to deal with potential harm from jinn, ranging from spiritual remedies like seeking refuge in God and reciting Quranic verses to more direct methods when necessary, always within the framework of Islamic law and principles.
There's a prohibition against pleasing jinn through animal sacrifices, which is considered polytheism. And finally, the internal struggle between the soul that commands evil, the tranquil soul. Satan's influence and angelic guidance is discussed, emphasizing Allah testing humanity through Satan to distinguish good from evil. This brings the focus back to individual moral responsibility.
Islamic theology emphasizes the internal battle within each individual between the inclinations towards good and evil. Satan serves as a tempter and a test, while angelic guidance and the tranquil soul, nafs al-mu'mina, represent the potential for spiritual growth and obedience to God. Ultimately, it is through this struggle that individuals are tested and their true nature is revealed.
So the Islamic perspective on jinn and devils offers a fascinating glimpse into a complex and nuanced understanding of the unseen world, with its own unique set of beliefs, practices, and ethical considerations. Finally, we have a very brief mention of the Voynich manuscript, describing the final page with its unknown script, possible Latin words, and an unfinished Old English-German sentence. It also touches on the generally unaccepted proposed solutions, like William R. Newbold's Roger Bacon cipher theory and its debunking, and the frustration of botanists trying to identify the herbal drawings. Botanists find it frustrating because the drawings often resemble known plants, but with strange, uncharacteristic features, or are entirely fantastical creations. This manuscript remains one of history's great enigmas.
The Voynich manuscript stands as a testament to the enduring mysteries that can persist despite intense scholarly scrutiny. Its indecipherable script and bizarre illustrations continue to fascinate and frustrate researchers, highlighting the limitations of our understanding and the potential for lost knowledge or elaborate hoaxes from the past.
It's a reminder that there are still many secrets hidden in the world waiting to be uncovered.
And perhaps some secrets are best left buried.
What strikes me most in reviewing these texts together is the consistent human desire to understand and control the unseen forces of the world, whether through ritual esoteric knowledge or religious frameworks, and also the parallel tendency to label that which is not understood or which challenges existing power structures as forbidden or even evil.
Absolutely. From elaborate spellcasting procedures to complex symbolic systems, warnings about demonic influence, and even accusations of heresy, these sources offer a glimpse into very different worldviews and the anxieties that shape them. It really makes you think about what knowledge is considered dangerous and why throughout history.
We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer understanding of some of the key themes and ideas contained within these fascinating, if sometimes unsettling, texts you shared. There's clearly so much more to explore here, and we encourage you to delve deeper into the aspects that resonated most with you.
Consider this. In a world saturated with information, what are the forbidden pages of our time, and who gets to decide what knowledge remains hidden or feared?
That's a question worth pondering. Thank you for joining us in the Occult Archives until our next unearthing of hidden knowledge.
Farewell.
Farewell.